They said it was just a slap. But when your 6-year-old daughter is sobbing in your arms, cheeks burning red from your brother's hand, and your parents are laughing, you know it's not just anything. It happened at my father's 65th birthday brunch. A lakeside mansion in Oregon. Silver platters, white roses, champagne fountains. And then violence in the middle of all that elegance. My name is Savannah Fielding. I'm 32. A single mom. A content strategist living in Seattle. I've spent most of my life learning how to keep the peace, how to stay small so others could feel big. But that day? That slap? It cracked something wide open. No one thought I'd do anything. They expected me to swallow it, like I always had. To apologize for causing a scene. But what they didn't know was that someone had wired the room for audio. For a family legacy video. Every word. Every sound. Captured. That's when everything changed. But to understand how I ended up walking away from the only family I've ever known, with a trembling child and a USB drive in my pocket, you need to know where it began. Because this isn't just about a slap. It's about generations of silence and the moment I finally broke it. If you've ever been told to keep the peace at the cost of your dignity, or watched someone you love be hurt and told it was discipline, this story is for you. And if you're a parent, especially a daughter raising a daughter, I hope you'll stay until the end. Because what started with my brother hitting my child turned into something no one in my family expected, a reckoning. This is the story of how one voice, hers, helped me reclaim my own. If you've ever been silenced, you're not alone. Like, comment, subscribe, and let's speak the truth together. My brother Travis was born with applause already waiting for him. Even before he could speak in full sentences, he was being paraded in monogrammed suits at holiday dinners, praised for being so mature for his age. By the time he was 10, my father called him a future CEO. By 16, the family's pride. And me? I was the challenge. At 7, I was told I asked too many questions. At 9, I was told I talked too loud. At 12, I was told I took up too much space in a room that was never really mine to begin with. My father, Charles Fielding, was a well-known attorney in downtown Seattle. Controlled. Imposing. A man of expensive watches and thin patience. My mother, Margaret, played her role like a movie character, always poised, always polished. Always performing for the invisible audience she imagined would care. Together they built an image. Elegant house, successful son, obedient daughter. Except, I didn't quite fit the frame. From an early age I learned to edit myself. I learned when to speak, when not to. When to smile politely even if something inside me screamed. I watched as Travis got away with skipping chores, breaking rules and later breaking hearts. My parents called it boys will be boys. When I cried after he locked me out of the house in the snow, my father scolded me for being dramatic. He's a boy. He said, "You're older. You should know better." I was 11. He was 9. By the time I reached high school, I'd mastered the art of invisibility. I knew how to fold myself small into library corners, into quiet friendships, into the safe pages of books that didn't talk back or roll their eyes. Meanwhile, Travis brought home trophies, flirted with my friends, and learned early that charm could excuse almost anything. Our house wasn't abusive in the way people expect. There were no broken plates. No screaming matches that woke the neighbors. No police ever called. It was quieter than that. More insidious. Love came in the form of conditions. You were loved if you performed, if you behaved, if you were useful to the family image. And I never quite was. What's worse is I started believing I didn't deserve more. When I got accepted to the University of Washington, my mother barely looked up from her salad at dinner. Oh, not Yale. That was it. No hug. No "we're proud of you." Just a cold fork and a colder glance at Travis, who had already been accepted to Dartmouth. When he joked, maybe she can join the cheerleading squad, everyone laughed. Even my grandmother. So I left home young, thinking freedom meant escape. I moved into a dorm with peeling paint and noisy neighbors, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. That's when I met Landon Myers. He was tall, soft-spoken, a nursing major with a calming presence and a backpack full of snacks he shared with anyone who looked stressed. He listened. He asked me how I was feeling and actually waited for the answer. And most dangerously, he saw me. We got married when I was 21. Too young, too fast. too desperate for a family that felt safe. My parents showed up to the wedding in navy and judgment. My father gave a toast that sounded like a warning. To Savannah and Landon, he said. May you learn to live with her need for independence. Everyone laughed. Even Landon. I smiled because it was easier. For a while we were happy in the way most young couples pretend to be. Shared bills, shared Spotify playlists, midnight walks through Capitol Hill after work. I worked retail, then admin, then communications. He started night shifts at the ER. When I got pregnant, Landon cried. And I finally thought, this is it. This is the family I never had. But parenthood didn't heal our cracks. It revealed them. He began staying late. Making excuses. I need space turned into don't wait up turned into it's not serious. There was someone else. A resident named Maya. Petite, brilliant, not exhausted all the time. We tried counseling. Once. By the time our daughter Ellie turned 4, the divorce was final. I kept the apartment. He kept the silence. I didn't tell my family the truth. I said we drifted apart. I didn't want to hear the lectures. I didn't want my mother to ask what I'd done wrong. I already knew what she thought. Because when I called once, asking for help covering preschool tuition, she sighed and said, maybe if you weren't so emotional, men wouldn't leave. And that was it. That was my worth to them. Problem to be managed. A cost to be minimized. But Ellie, she was my undoing in the most beautiful way. She sang when she woke up. She sang in the bathtub. She sang in line at Trader Joe's with absolute disregard for how it looked. She had no filter for joy. And I made a silent promise every night I tucked her in, I will not raise you in fear. You will not inherit my silence. I just didn't realize that to keep that promise, I'd have to go back into the very house I'd run from. And walk directly into the storm I'd spent years avoiding. The invitation arrived in an envelope so thick it could have doubled as a weapon. Ivory cardstock. Gold lettering. Join us for a weekend celebration in honor of Charles Fielding's 65th birthday. Lakefront estate. Dress code. Garden formal. I read it 3 times, trying to decipher the message beneath the message. Was it a gesture of peace? An image maintenance move? A trap? Then the text from my mother came. It would mean a lot to your father if you came. Travis is flying in from New York. Bring Ellie. Bring Ellie. That was the part that made my stomach tighten. Not because I didn't want her there, but because I did. She had never seen that side of the family in full force. She'd met them in small doses, holidays, a brunch or two, but never all together. Never in their natural habitat. The performance. The hierarchy. The scrutiny. I stared at my phone for almost an hour before I replied. We'll come. Just for Saturday. The next morning. Ellie was already packing her sparkliest dress and singing made-up songs about Grandpa's birthday cake. She was ecstatic. To her, this was a party. A lake house. An adventure. I didn't have the heart to tell her it was a war zone wrapped in white linen and finger foods. When we pulled up to the estate, Ellie's face lit up. It's like a castle, Mommy. She wasn't wrong. The Fielding summer home loomed over Lake Crescent. Glass, cedar. And the kind of wealth that doesn't whisper. Staff moved briskly. Cars lined the drive. The whole place buzzed with curated luxury. And there, waiting on the porch, was Margaret Fielding. My mother hadn't aged. Or rather, she had, but only in ways she approved of. Her face was smooth in that tight, expensive way. Her dress was a shade of periwinkle that probably cost more than my rent. You made it, she said, kissing Ellie on the head before looking me up and down. You look comfortable. I smiled the way you do when you're biting your tongue hard enough to taste blood. Inside, the house buzzed with curated chaos. Waiters in black. Classical music humming low. Relatives I barely remembered clutching wine glasses like armor. Ellie was instantly swept away by cousins in glitter and promises of a giant trampoline by the lake. I stayed back. Observing. Bracing. Travis arrived fashionably late, of course. Tan tailored, teeth too white. His wife Sienna at his side, in a flowing dress and an expression that flickered between polite and frozen. Well, he said, arms open. The prodigal daughter returns. I hugged him out of instinct, not affection. You look like Seattle, he added, smirking. Do you still work at that startup? Or did it shut down like most of them? I'm still there, I said evenly. Managing content and brand development. He blinked, clearly disappointed I hadn't fallen apart in a way he could mock. Sienna, to her credit, gave me a gentle smile. "It's good to see you, Savannah." She squeezed my hand briefly. It was the only warmth I'd feel that evening. Dinner was served on the back patio beneath strings of Edison bulbs and a pink and orange sky that felt too beautiful for such a brittle table. My father held court from the head seat, raising glasses to toast himself between long-winded stories about his cases, his golf handicap, his investments. Travis chimed in with anecdotes from his life in New York, when I was speaking at the Youth Leadership Conference, or when I met the governor last month. At one point, Ellie burst into a little song at the kids' table, something about pineapples and birthdays. Pure joy. My mother winced. "Savannah, maybe remind her to use her indoor voice?" I reached for my wine. The kids were soon dismissed to the play area, an oversized room lined with board games, beanbags, and surveillance-grade baby monitors. That's when I saw Luca, the man behind the camera crew, setting up a small device near the bookshelf. "Charles wants a few candid moments," he said, tapping the tiny wireless mic receiver. "He says he wants the family as they are." I glanced around. As they are? So shallow, competitive, judgmental? Sounded about right. Still, I nodded. "Just make sure Ellie's not picked up. She didn't sign a release." Luca grinned. "Don't worry. She's safe. This is just for the grown-ups." He winked, but something about it didn't sit right. Not with him, he seemed decent, but with the whole idea. Recording a family like ours without direction? That was either brave or suicidal. Later, as the evening grew darker and the string lights buzzed with mosquitoes and tension, I found Ellie curled up in the hallway, coloring quietly. "Mommy," she whispered. "Uncle Travis said my song was silly." My chest tightened. "And Aunt Lila said I talk a lot." Of course they did. I crouched next to her and kissed her forehead. "You know what I think?" I whispered. She nodded. "I think they're boring. And you're brilliant." She smiled. And that moment right there should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Because the next morning at breakfast, everything unraveled. The morning was far too beautiful for what was about to happen. Golden light streamed through the tall windows of the great room, glinting off champagne flutes and white porcelain. The lake outside was glass smooth, reflecting the pines like a secret held too long. Ellie bounced at the foot of my bed, already dressed in her favorite yellow dress with embroidered suns. "Mommy! Mommy, wake up. Grandpa said there's waffles." I forced a smile. "Okay, sunshine. Let's go get some." Downstairs, the house was already buzzing. Caterers passed trays of fruit skewers and bacon-wrapped dates. My father, Charles, sat at the long oak table in his signature blazer and pocket square, barking stock advice to my uncle. My mother was orchestrating the event like a socialite general, directing servers, correcting flower placements, adjusting the volume of the string quartet playing near the fireplace. Travis and Sienna sat near the head of the table. He was sipping coffee like he owned the sunrise. Ellie ran to join her cousins at the kids' table by the window. She waved at me, beaming. For a few minutes, everything almost felt normal. Then Ellie began to sing. It started softly, just a hum as she colored. But as always, the joy built. Her small voice rose clear and bright. "Let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine." It echoed through the great room, cutting through adult chatter and the clinking of cutlery. I smiled. She was singing the song from her preschool recital. The one she sang in the bathtub, in the car, in the grocery store. It was her joy, pure and untamed. And then, Travis had been fidgeting all morning, tapping his fork, sighing loudly, glancing at his phone. Then he slammed his cup down. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. "For God's sake," he snapped. "Can no one control that child?" Every head turned. I stood, heart pounding. "Travis, she's just singing." He pushed back his chair. The legs scraped against the wood floor like a scream. "I said enough," he growled. And then he walked straight toward her. I stepped forward, but my mother turned suddenly, tray in hand, cutting off my path without realizing. "Savannah, do you want some more coffee?" "Just a second. Just long enough." Travis reached Ellie. She looked up, smiling, completely unaware. And he slapped her. The sound of it rang out louder than her song had. Ellie gasped. Her hand flew to her cheek. Her crayon rolled off the table. The room went silent. Ellie froze, eyes wide, breath caught. And in that frozen second, I saw myself. At her age. learning that joy could be punished. Then the tears came raw, confused, betrayed. I ran to her, scooping her up into my arms. What is wrong with you? I snapped at Travis, my voice trembling with fury. She's 6. He didn't flinch. She's 6 and she's obnoxious, he said flatly. Maybe if someone had taught you discipline, you wouldn't have turned out like this. I held Ellie tighter. My father stood, folding his napkin with precision. Well, perhaps she needed a reminder that the world doesn't revolve around her noise. My mother sipped her tea, calm as a pond. Ellie's lovely, but she is rather spirited. Like Savannah used to be. Always needing attention. I stared at them. Disbelief. Rage. Shame. All crashing in my chest at once. She was singing, I said. She was being a child. Travis rolled his eyes. Spare us the drama. Savannah. Maybe if you had a husband to help raise her. Don't, I warned. You're always playing the victim, he sneered. No wonder Landon left. That's when I saw Luca. He was standing frozen near the archway, camera gear slung over his shoulder, face pale. And strapped to his belt was the wireless mic pack. The one he had turned on the night before. The one that had captured everything. I looked him in the eyes. Just for a second. And he gave the tiniest imperceptible nod. He had it. Every word. Every slap. Every justification. My legs shook. But I stood straighter. We're done, I said. Ellie and I are leaving. My mother scoffed. Oh, come on. Don't be so sensitive. It was barely a tap. Ellie's face said otherwise. A red imprint bloomed across her cheek like a cruel signature. I turned to Travis, voice steady now. You hit a child for singing. That says everything about you. And nothing about her. She needs boundaries, he said coldly. She needs safety, I snapped. Something this house clearly doesn't provide. My father stepped forward, jaw clenched. Savannah, don't make a scene. If you walk out now, don't expect another dime from this family. Good, I said. I don't want anything that comes with your conditions. I didn't wait for more. I turned, cradling Ellie. And walked out, past the stunned silence, past the linen and the flowers and the clinking glasses. And as the front door closed behind us, I knew. This time I wasn't just running away. I was walking towards something better. Ellie fell asleep before we even reached the end of the driveway. Her head slumped against my shoulder, warm and trembling. Her cheek, still red from the slap, was pressed against my collarbone like she was trying to disappear into me. I held her tightly, one arm cradling her, one hand fumbling with the car keys. I didn't cry. Not yet. I couldn't afford to. Luca was waiting near the garage, standing half in shadow. Without a word, he reached into his coat and handed me a small silver USB. It felt heavier than it should have, like it carried decades of silence. In 64 gigabytes. I took it with shaking fingers. You didn't have to do this, I said. Yeah, he replied quietly. I did. I gave a single nod, then turned back to my car. As I buckled Ellie in and pulled out of the circular driveway, I didn't look back. Not at the house. Not at the people inside it. Not at the life I had once begged to belong to. Instead, I drove. No music. No talking. Just the hum of the engine and the sound of Ellie's breathing. By the time we reached the highway, my hands had stopped shaking. By the time we crossed the bridge into Seattle, I had already made 2 decisions. First, we weren't going back to the apartment. Second, I was calling Tara. Tara had been my best friend since college. The one who'd seen me through the breakup with Landon, the sleepless nights when Ellie was colicky. The panic attacks that came out of nowhere on Sunday afternoons. When she answered the phone, her voice was bright. Hey, how was the? Travis hit Ellie. Silence. What? He slapped her. At breakfast. She was singing and he just walked up and hit her. Oh my God. Is she a? She's sleeping now. We're on our way to you. I'm not going home. Come. I'll be outside. Bring her straight in. Tara's apartment was small but safe. The second we arrived, she wrapped me in a hug, then gently carried Ellie into the guest room. I sat on her couch, staring at the USB drive like it might burn a hole through the table. You have proof? Tara asked, returning with a blanket in hand. I nodded. Luca, the videographer, they had microphones running for the family documentary. It caught everything. She exhaled slowly. Then they're screwed. I didn't reply. I felt nothing. Or maybe everything. It was hard to tell. Savannah, she said, sitting beside me. What do you want to do? The question felt enormous. Like I'd been handed a live wire. I don't know. Do you want to call the police? Maybe, I said. But you know how these things go. No bruises, no video. Just audio. Just my word against theirs. And they'll spin it. They always do. So what then? I don't want revenge, I whispered. I want protection. For Ellie. For any kid who might be near Travis ever again. She nodded. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Then she got up and brought her laptop. Let's listen to it, she said. Together. I plugged the USB in with trembling hands. The audio started, breakfast chatter, silverware clinking. Ellie's little voice rising into song. Then came Travis's outburst. The chair scraping. The slap. Even without video you could hear it all. The impact. The silence. The smirk in my father's voice. Well, maybe she needed to learn some shame. My mother's light laugh. Just like Savannah always did. My voice. Cracked with rage. She's 6. And then Travis's cold answer. She's old enough to learn that the world doesn't revolve around her noise. When the recording ended, Tara turned to me. You have to do something with this. I nodded slowly. I will. That night, I slept next to Ellie, curled around her like armor. She had nightmares. Soft whimpers flinching in her sleep. Each time I whispered, "You're safe now. Mommy's here." And in the dark, something shifted. Not rage. Not grief. Something deeper. Resolve. This was no longer about just one slap. This was about every moment they tried to silence her. And me. They thought I'd disappear again. They thought I'd cry and move on. But I had something I never had before. Proof. And a reason stronger than pride. My daughter. The next morning, I made 2 appointments. One with Dr. Carver, Ellie's pediatrician. The other with Dr. Melissa Garner, a licensed child psychologist. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell anyone except Tara. I needed facts, assessments, official documentation, not more opinions from people who had spent years defending monsters in press suits. Dr. Carver was gentle. He examined Ellie with the calm, steady voice of someone who'd seen far too much already. She's got slight swelling on the cheekbone, he said softly, but nothing fractured. The emotional damage will take more time to assess. Then he looked at me serious. You're doing the right thing bringing her in. Most parents don't. I nodded. She didn't cry right away. She froze. That's often worse, he said. Kids who freeze. That means they already know no one's coming to stop it. That line broke something inside me. After the physical exam, we walked down the hall to Dr. Garner's office. She had big glasses, calm eyes, and a room full of toys that somehow didn't feel childish. Just welcoming. Ellie took to her quickly. Dr. Garner didn't push. She asked gentle questions. They played with puppets. Drew pictures. I waited outside, hands clasped until my knuckles hurt. When the session ended, Dr. Garner invited me in. She's holding it in, she said carefully. She knows what happened was wrong. But she's confused about why the adults in the room didn't stop it. She's asking if she did something bad. I swallowed hard. She didn't. I know that, the doctor replied. But she doesn't. Not yet. She handed me a paper. A written assessment. Clinically speaking, Ellie is presenting with acute stress responses. Nightmares. Hypervigilance. Fear of male authority figures. We'll work through it. But I'd recommend weekly sessions for now. I took the page, hands still trembling. It felt like holding proof of a wound no one wanted to admit existed. Later that day, while Ellie napped, Tara and I sat at her kitchen table and reviewed every piece of the puzzle. The audio, the medical documentation, the psychological assessment. I don't want to sue, I said. Tara nodded. I didn't think you would. I don't want money. I want accountability. That, she said, is much harder to get. That night, I met with Lisa Chin, a lawyer I knew from college. She had worked on family court cases and advocacy for children in Washington state. After listening to the audio and reviewing the paperwork, she leaned back in her chair and exhaled slowly. This is enough for a civil case, she said. Possibly even a criminal investigation if you press charges. But here's the thing. Without video, it becomes about credibility. And Travis has a lot of social capital. I don't want a trial, I said. I want protection. And exposure. She raised an eyebrow. He's on the board of that youth mentorship nonprofit, I continued. He volunteers with that school scholarship foundation. He gives keynote talks about leadership and values. Lisa's mouth twisted in irony. Of course he does. I want them to hear it, I said. Tapping the USB drive. All of it. She considered that. That's doable. You'd need to be careful, possibly request anonymity for Ellie. Frame it as an ethical concern, not a personal vendetta. I'm not trying to destroy him, I said. I just don't think someone who hits a 6-year-old for singing should be mentoring high schoolers. Lisa nodded. Understood. I'll help you write the letters. That night I drafted 3 emails. To the board of directors at the Northwest Youth Foundation. To the school district advisory council where Travis had spoken 3 times that year. And to the ethics committee at his own firm, WHE. His title included the word people and culture. Each message included a brief summary of what happened, a statement of concern as a parent and citizen, and a link to a trimmed version of the audio, clean, clear, unedited. No commentary. Just their voices. Their words. Tara sat beside me as I hovered over the send button. You're sure? She asked. I looked at Ellie, asleep on the couch with her stuffed owl tucked under one arm. That morning, she had whispered something that shook me. Mommy, I had a dream Uncle Travis was chasing me. He wanted to make me quiet. I had kissed her hair and promised, he'll never get close to you again. So yes, I was sure. I clicked send, and the fallout began within hours. The first message came from an unknown number. What have you done? I didn't answer. Then came the voicemail from Travis, tight, frantic. You need to fix this. The board called an emergency meeting. Someone forwarded them the clip. You have to tell them this was a misunderstanding, Savannah. They're talking about suspending me. He didn't sound sorry. He sounded scared. The text came next. Dozens of them. From my mother. My father, my Aunt Lila. This is not how family handles things. You've always been dramatic. How could you betray your brother like this? I didn't respond to any of them. Because I wasn't the one who betrayed the family. Travis did that when he hit a child. My child. Later that day, I got a call from the director of the Northwest Youth Foundation. We've reviewed the audio, she said simply. We are terminating Mr. Fielding's position on our board, effective immediately. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. 2 hours later, a spokesperson from the District Advisory Council emailed to say that Travis's speaking engagements had been canceled pending internal review. That night, Lisa texted. Just got word. His firm's HR has launched a formal ethics investigation. He's been placed on leave. 3 institutions. 3 acknowledgments. 3 cracks in a legacy that had been protected for far too long. Still, it wasn't easy. My parents escalated. My father emailed my employer, demanding to know if I was mentally fit to represent their company. Grace, my manager at the agency, forwarded it to me with a note. He seems unwell. Don't worry. We have your back. Travis tried too. He called my ex-husband, Landon. Said I was unstable. That I was using Ellie to settle old scores. Landon, to his credit, replied, whatever happened? I know Savannah would never use our daughter for revenge. She protects her. Always has. But the most unexpected reaction came from Sienna. She emailed me late one night. Thank you for standing up. I saw how Travis treated Ellie, and it broke something in me. Because that's how he talks to me. Not always with his hands, but with his words. With silence. With shame. I've moved out. I don't know what comes next. But I want you to know, you didn't just protect your daughter. You gave someone else the courage to leave. I cried for 20 minutes after reading that. Not because I felt powerful, but because I finally felt free. Weeks passed. Ellie started sleeping through the night again. She began singing in the bathtub, soft at first. Like she was testing the air. Then louder, brighter. Until one evening, she performed a whole made-up concert for me and Tara in the living room, complete with costume changes and bowing. It wasn't just a child being silly. It was a reclaiming. A voice that refused to stay quiet. One Saturday morning I got a letter in the mail. From my grandmother. The only person in the family who hadn't called, texted, or criticized. It read, "Dear Savannah, I listened to the recording. I heard the slap. I heard what your parents said. I'm sorry. I should have stopped this cycle years ago. I see now what silence cost us. You were never the problem. You were just the one who saw it clearly. I'm proud of you. Love, Grandma Ruth." I held that letter for a long time, because for the first time it felt like someone in that bloodline got it. 6 months later, Ellie stood in the middle of our community center, wearing a sparkly blue dress and holding a microphone with both hands. It was the end-of-term children's recital. When her name was called, she walked on stage without looking back. She sang the same song, Let It Shine, the one Travis had silenced. Her voice rang clear, soft at first, then bold. I didn't record it. I didn't need to. I stood, listened, let the tears come, because that moment wasn't about redemption. It was about restoration, of safety, of joy, of voice. After the applause faded, Ellie ran into my arms and said, "I wasn't scared this time." And I whispered back, "That's because you're brave. And because you know now your voice deserves to be heard." Protecting your child doesn't always look like shields and swords. Sometimes it's showing them that when someone hurts them, and the world says, "Stay quiet," you stand up and say, "No," even if it costs you family, reputation, peace. Because what you gain, self-respect, healing, and a child who knows they matter, is worth more than silence ever bought you. So if they ever told you to, lower your voice. Raise it. If they told you, don't make trouble, be the storm. Because silence doesn't protect the innocent. It protects the powerful. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you've ever had to choose between protecting someone you love or keeping the peace, tell us your story below. Your voice matters.